Okay, already? So just a correct motivation, just think that we here together for a particular purpose, yeah, to eliminate destructive emotions and generate the mind in constructive ways all the way up to nirvana or enlightenment. So try to generate motivation for yourself. Alright, so then, yeah, why do we have to know ignorance and why do we have to realize emptiness? That's the question. Yeah. So we're going to try to answer that question. So, what is ignorance and why is it important to understand it? Right? So, yeah, because conventional truth and ultimate truth, so we talked a little bit about conventional realities and we talked about dependent origination, right? So, the law of dependent origination of cause and effect we talked about, right? So the things are in the nature of cause and effect relationships, and because things are in nature of cause and effect relationships, nothing can exist from its own side. That's one reason. So to go more depth, what is ignorance and why do we have to know it and how do we eliminate it? It's very essential to understand. In order to understand the ultimate reality, we have to know the conventional reality. So the most subtle aspect of conventional reality and ultimate reality is like two sides of a coin. Like emptiness and the most subtle aspect of dependent origination, like merely imputed by the mind, for example, is like two sides of the coin. They prove each other. Right? So yeah, so we have to come to that kind of direction. So first of all, we have to know and generate the interest in why do we have to know this ultimate reality. So we just saw that the destructive, just before the break, the destructive emotions, they caused by kind of thinking that we exist concrete from our own side. The I and mine, so to say, exists. So with this kind of example of the phone in China, so to say, you could see that people grasp at the phone as existing concrete there, and the I concrete there, right? So another proof that the afflictions actually are caused by this concrete concept of I and mine is very simple. You know? If I ask you now, please get angry, everybody, then it's very difficult if I talk like that. You know? But if I say, oh, you look like this, you look like that, and you behave like this, you behave like that, you know? Then it's like, how dare this person say this to me, right? So then, because how dare this person say this to me, you know, I'm more important. You know, I don't have those faults. You know? So then the I comes up, the protective kind of self-centeredness, right? So that self-centeredness actually causes this anger to arise. Yeah, it's kind of a fuel for this anger to arise, right? So this self-centered, concrete self-centeredness is there, or concrete concept of I am mine. You get disturbed, and the person says something to you which you think is not reality, and you don't like that kind of confrontation. That's why if a person criticizes us, if the person is right or wrong, that doesn't matter, we don't like it. Right? Even if the person is completely correct and points out our mistakes, we still don't like it.
Right? I think that's worse when it's true.
Yeah, that's worse when it's true. So that means that the I comes up and it wants to be protected, right? I'm not like that. You know? So you can see that this kind of concrete concept of I am mine is actually one of the roots to make everything very concrete. Right? And based on seeing oneself as concrete and the person who talks to you as concrete, as well as what we talked about as concrete, then this whole thing starts to escalate. Yeah? So that's why this is what we call ignorance of this kind of grasping at a concrete I am mine, or inherent I am mine, technically, as we say it, is actually a fundamental cause for all destructive emotions to arise. Based on this aspect, or I like this pizza, right? So then you order that pizza and then it's too late and then you get uptight because, you know, the object of your attachment is not there when it's expected. So because of the separation of the object of attachment, aversion arises, right? So that is all related with this concrete concept of I am mine. And actually, it's all it appears as reality, but if you examine, it's not that real at all. You know, so they can prove with another example. For example, if you buy a fancy car, you know, I don't know, kind of very expensive, think about a very expensive car, BMW or Mercedes, or I don't know, in the UK we have all kind of other cars as well, you know. So you can choose your own favorite expensive car, and there's a showroom with like 10 of them, right? And a little boy walks in that showroom and throws stones on the cars, right? So you react like, oh, that's not nice. That's how you react, right? But then you buy one car and you pay in installments or whatsoever. You made a contract with a dealer, and you pass by again, and the same boy is the same way throwing stones at all those cars. The car is exactly the same, right? Right? The boy is the same, the car is the same, but one car you merely imputed, that's mine. So then, when the boy throws the stones, you react completely different as before. So now you say, my car, how dare this boy, you know, doing something like destroying my car, you know. So then, though the car is the same, the showroom is the same, the boy is the same, but your relationship with that particular car is different. Yeah, that's actually just merely imputed by the mind, right? But your reaction becomes completely different than before, because I, you know, this concrete concept of I and mind. So, from many angles, actually, you can prove that this concrete concept of I and mind is actually the cause for, you know, to make everything very concrete, seeing everything as very concrete. Then these destructive emotions, they start to arise. You know? So, if you have a kind of state of mind that understands that reality much better, when there's no possibilities or less possibilities to make things concrete, then that's a sign of seeing that because you lack that concrete aspect of reality, then those emotions, they don't have the building blocks, right? That's what I said when this Holiness starts to say, like, if you think about emptiness on a regular basis, yeah, like 16 times a day or something like that, then it looks like afflictions don't arise. That means if you understand or have this kind of mindfulness of dependent origination, that nothing exists from its own side, actually that proves that if you have that correct understanding, then this concrete aspect of reality, you know, it doesn't exist the way it appears. And because of that insight or that understanding, then these destructive emotions will lose their potential. You know? So that's why a lot of kind of very simplified meditations on what we see in other traditions as well, like, you know, simple meditations on observance of body and mind sensations, or what happens in the body and mind, that trains the mind actually in a very constructive way of what dependent origination is all about. Right? So the more we understand that things are in the nature of cause and effect, the less kind of grasping at a concrete or true existence appears. Right? So that means the more you understand that we are in the nature of cause and effects, then this concrete appearance will slowly be taken down. Yeah? So that's one of the reasons, right? Cause and effect relationships. That's one of the levels of dependent origination. There's many levels, as you know. Dependent origination, if you have because dependent origination proves that things don't exist from their own side. Right? Nothing exists inherently. So so let's say let's classify them in the general traditional explanation of 3 levels of dependent origination. Yeah? And why do we have to know dependent origination? We have to know dependent origination in order to prove emptiness. And what is emptiness? Emptiness means empty of something. Empty of what? Empty of inherent existence. Right? So the things appear to us very concrete, but we have to prove it doesn't exist the way it appears. Right? We already saw this morning that whatever appears to the mind is not always reality. Right? Like a dream example, or a train example, or people with strong anxieties, like, I'm not going out today because this will happen, that will happen, this will happen, that will happen. It's all mental fabrications, it's not reality. Or people, let's take a sunny day in Leeds, you know, for the change. So, a sunny day in Leeds, and you walk with a person through, I don't know, I've never been to the city center, but I can imagine there's kind of place you can have some coffee on a terrace and everything. Right? So, you sit there on terrace, have some coffee or tea, If you drink
We
tea,
didn't coffee.
tea in the UK,
Yeah,
so a nice cup of tea, you know. So then you're standing there, nice cup of tea, and then you, if you're an optimist in life, it's like, oh, nice, you know, cup of tea, nice weather, nice place. But then a person next to you who is depressed, that same place, which appears to you as kind of nice, doesn't appear as nice to that person. But it's the same place, right? So the external world is exactly the same. But just how we mentally react to it is a completely different thing. So that's important thing to know, that the more we understand this actual reality, then we also see that a lot of things is just mental fabrications. Yeah, so you see that sometimes 80 to 90% of the destructive emotions is just merely mental fabricated, it's not reality. Right? So that we have to break down, and break down with what we saw with analytical meditation, as we do it this morning, but also by understanding this kind of ultimate nature of reality. Right? So what we did this morning, you become more aware, right? And because of that awareness, you see the things much clearer. And by doing this analytical meditation, you counteract those destructive emotions, right, to a certain extent. Yeah, so then it's possible. But there's still, if you work on this aspect as one part of the practice, but on the other aspect, you understand and try to understand this kind of nature of dependent origination, or this lack or absence of concrete existence. So when we say emptiness, doesn't mean nothingness, right? It means empty of something. Empty of what? Empty of inherent existence. So it's lacking something. Like this room is lacking in London. I use the example of the London Eye. The London Eye, the kind of thing that goes around and it's light up in the evening. So I don't know, a lease or something like that.
We don't have one of those now.
No,
Not yet.
but something like a important kind of building, church or something like that.
To the town hall.
Huh?
The town hall.
The town hall, yeah. So let's take the town hall as an example. So the town hall is not in this room, right? So this room is empty of the town hall, right? So that means this room is empty of the town hall. Yeah? So emptiness means empty of something. It doesn't mean nothingness, you know. So emptiness means empty of concrete existence, or empty of inherent existence. Yeah? So that's the ultimate truth. Yeah? Up to now we only talked about conventional truth. Yeah? So the ultimate truth means emptiness, right? So the ultimate truth of emptiness is being described of an absence or lacking true existence or inherent existence, or, you know, in a kind of more easy way to explain, a more concrete existence, that things appear and in a way that exists from their own side. So everything is empty of that, because nothing exists by itself. Everything is always depending on something else than itself. Right? So cause and condition, same thing. If you have a seed and you put it here on the table, nothing will happen. Right? But if you put a seed somewhere like the plant's there in the pot with some fertilization, heat and moisture, it will grow. Right? So the conditions are there. Yeah? So that kind of law of causality proves that a seed doesn't exist all by itself. And when it rises into a plant, also that depends on many other conditions than only itself. Right? So that proves that things don't exist from their own side. Right? They are dependent on other things. Yeah? So that's what we call dependent origination. So with dependent origination, we prove that things are empty of inherent existence. Yeah, that's the proof, the reason. So dependent origination is being considered by Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and many other great scholars as being the king of reasons. Yeah, why is it the king? Or, you know, in the early days the king was the most superior person, also in the UK, I think. Not yeah, so here, same thing. Among all the reasons, the king of reason is this kind of dependent origination, right? To prove things don't exist from its own side. Yeah, so dependent origination has two syllables. Right? Dependent origination, independent tendrel, if you want. Those who, you know, tendrel or tendrel junga. Yeah, so the first syllable, dependent, actually proves that things don't exist from their own side. They are depending upon something else than itself. Right? So if you understand that aspect of dependent, you will not fall into the extreme of eternalism or thinking that everything exists from its own side. Right? So that's why this king of reasons is very profound. Why? Because it prevents you not falling in what's called the two extremes. So it is the first extreme of eternalism, that things exist from their own side. Right? So that's the first one, dependent. The other syllable, origination, sometimes, dependent origination or dependent arising, right? Depending how you translate it. Yeah? So that syllable origination or arising, yeah, proves that conventionally things exist, right? Conventional things are depending in this level of causes and conditions. So that also proves it's not that nothing exists at all. Yeah? So you don't fall into the extreme of nihilism. Yeah? So nihilism thinks, oh, there's nothing there, so it doesn't matter whatever you do. Right? So that's not true, right? Yeah? So that's why it's called the king of reasonings, because dependent prevents you from not falling into the extreme of eternalism, thinking that things exist from their own side, without dependence, right? Well, origination, dependent origination, right? Or dependent arising. So origination or arising, that syllable, or the meaning of that syllable, helps us not to fall into the extreme of nihilism, that nothing exists at all. So eternalism and nihilism are the two extremes, right? Things exist either all by themselves or not at all. So that's why this, called the king of reasons, is kind of the middle way. The middle way approach, so to say. And that's why the Buddha talked about the middle way of reasoning, you know, to not fall in either of those two extremes. Yeah. So that's the dependent origination, yeah, that reason being to prove that things don't exist as concrete as they appear. So that things exist concrete, yeah, that's very evident if we get criticized or when a strong emotion comes up. There's a very strong grasping at I am I. Right? Very, or when you're close to death, for example. You know, if you imagine you in a free fall and the parachute is not going to open, you know, then there's a kind of strong feeling, you know, or you'll not, I don't know, I didn't see very tall buildings in Leeds, but yeah, few I saw. If you stand on a top high building and you're almost falling off, you know, then also there can be a very strong fear. Or in a plane with a lot of turbulence, and then thinking, oh, now the motor is going to shut down, or both of them. It can cause a kind of fear, right? Yeah, so that's why people start screaming at that time, because it's frightening. So then at that time also the I appears very concrete. Yeah? And of course, and the person who criticizes you. Yeah? So that's actually a person who criticizes you, if he or she is wrong or right, actually at that time it doesn't matter. That time is extremely precious. You know? Because according to Lama Tsongkhapa and many other scholars of the past, including Shantideva and the Buddhist of Jayapatara also, the quotes from Lama Tsongkhapa based on that one, that if you don't understand how things appear, you know, then it's very, and to know that this concrete appearance or this appearance of inherent existence, if you don't get a clear picture of that aspect, then it's very difficult to understand happiness, right? Because you have to refute something, you know, what appears very concrete, but doesn't exist that way. So you have to know how it appears. So a very clear moment that appears is a person who criticizes you. So instead of getting annoyed by the person who criticizes, actually you don't have to physically put your hands together, but actually you should just meditate, you know, because that's a very precious opportunity to see how the I appears. You know, very concrete, egoistic I am mine that appears. Yeah? So first there's a very concrete concept of an I am mine that arises, and based on that, then we get this egoistic aspect and self-cherishing aspect, right? So first is the initial step is this concrete concept of I am mine, existing from its own side, without dependence, right? So that's the initial step. So that's why also the awareness we did this morning, though very simplified and, you know, we didn't spend that much time on it, but at least you get a little bit idea how to do it, right? So that actually brings a lot of kind of knowledge to our mind, to not only with destructive emotions, but also when the I arises. You know? You examine a moment that a person was, you know, pointing out your mistakes, and then you see actually how the I appeared at that time. That's very, you learn a lot from that kind of day-to-day life experience, right? So if you see that happening, then it's very, it's incredibly important to get a clear picture. How does it appear? That's very important, you know, because later on, if you want to meditate and refute that concrete existence, you have to know what you refute, right? So if you, those who study Lamrim, then many of the Lamrims very clearly explained the need for recognizing the object of refutation, so to say. So if you read Pabonga Rinpoche's Lamrim, which is a very short summary of it, but at least there's a very nice description of if you have a thief, right, who's engaging in stealing your possessions all the time, until you have a very clear picture of how he looks like, or she looks like, you know what kind of dress they normally use, what is the facial, how the face looks like, you know. Until that, you were never able to catch this particular thief, right? So same thing for this object reputation. Until you have a clear picture of it, it's very difficult to kick it out of the room, right? Yeah? So that's why it's very important to get a clear picture. So that's why when you get strong afflictions, or when a person criticizes you, there's an incredible opportunity. Yeah? So that you shouldn't waste that opportunity. Yeah. So that's and if people get annoyed with you by certain reasons, then also those persons who get angry at you, also they deep inside don't want this kind of disturbance of mind, right? There's also, the person is not a problem, but the mind of the person, and especially the affliction, that's the problem. So yeah, so then we get a clear picture of this object of refutation, and then we start to reason that actually, does it exist the way it appears? One question, right? So then we can actually reason and see that it cannot exist the way it appears. Because the way it appears is in a way that it seems to be kind of isolated all by itself without dependence, right? That's how it appears, right? So that way it cannot exist, because our body and mind are momentarily changing, right? So our body, we can see that even certain cells, you know, certain organs, they change every few years, because all the cells, they change, right? So from the tip of our toes to the crown of our head, there's this kind of a complexity of multiple changes. So within our body, there's nothing that can exist concrete all by itself, right? There's no place for that. Though it appears sometimes mixed with the body, but actually you cannot find it. So same with the mind. So same thing, you know. The mind is just a fluctuation of thoughts and different kind of perceptions. From the moment, you know, we wake up, then we do our daily activities until the present. Yeah, there's nothing existing from its own side. We go to sleep, then we have dream consciousness. There's so many different types of consciousness. Within all those different types of consciousness, there's no place for something concrete to exist all by itself. Right? So there are a few simplified reasons to prove that the self cannot exist in that concrete way, as it appears. Yeah? So the funny thing is that the self appears in a particular way, but actually doesn't exist that way. But it's the cause for all the problems. So something that actually doesn't exist causes us to suffer. You know? And the same true with depression, the same true with anxiety, same true with all the destructive emotions. We believe in them, but actually they're not in concert with reality, as we saw. You know? So with ignorance, same thing. Yeah, so ignorance, there's many types of ignorance, right? So the ignorance we're talking about here is the ignorance of the view with beliefs that aspect of things exist without dependence, things exist from their own side. Right? So based on that ignorance, we see things extremely concrete, existing from their own side, without dependence on causes and conditions. Right? So, and that causes kind of enhancing this kind of aspects of how things appear, and then negative, destructive emotions like anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, they come up, and then the whole circle is round, right? So then there's no escape, so to say. So in order to really cut this ignorance, we have to understand emptiness. So emptiness is the ultimate truth, yeah? Meaning empty of inherent existence. So what is inherent existence? Inherent existence is thinking it looks like things exist from their own side without dependence. Yeah, that's what we call inherent existence, right? So that we can see how the I appears. When we get angry, when afflictions arise, when we're getting criticized, when we're close to death, you know. At those moments is a very concrete concept of an appearance of I and mine that likes to exist all by itself, without dependence. So that picture you should get very clear. You know? And then we can refute it by this this kind of dependent origination, this kind of reasoning of the ultimate reality. Right? So this reason to prove ultimate reality, we use conventional reality. Yeah? Because we don't know emptiness yet, so we have to start somewhere. Yeah? So the things that appears to us, like our sense perception, like color and shape, you know, we can easily see without thinking, right? We can see this yellow, you know, unless you're colorblind or something, but the color and the shape of the cup, we don't have to reason. It comes automatically, you know, we see and you know. So, but this cup has many aspects, right? So every object has kind of a manifest aspect as well as a hidden aspect, right? So this cup, the manifest aspect is kind of the color and the shape, you know, we can see, right, with our eye consciousness. But also is momentary changing, you know. This cup is momentary changing. So that momentary changing nature of the cup, we can only understand by using reasoning, right? We cannot see or hear or feel it, you know. So that means that is like our body, same thing, you know. When we look in the mirror and we look in the picture when we were 16, there's a difference, right? So the difference didn't happen overnight. It happens overnight, and probably some people might be quite shocked. You know, so luckily it happens over a gradual period of time. So that means that it happens not every year or every month, but also every week and every minute and every second, every split second. So that understanding of every split second is for us not that easy to see. We cannot see that, right? We have to reason. Yeah. So those kind of wrong understandings of thinking and look in the mirror, think, oh, same as yesterday, same tomorrow. We think like that, right? You look in the mirror, but actually it's not. Yeah? So then we have these wrong views of reality. You know? So then the cosmetic industry, they're very clever, so they like us to believe that even more, and they produce this kind of shampoos and kind of, you know, creams, and then you don't get grey and you don't get wrinkles, and basically they say we stop decay, you know, but actually you cannot stop decay, you know. But some people believe in that because it's just grasping to permanence, right? So because of the grasping to permanence, thinking to change, some people believe that and buy the product. So that's a wrong view. Right? So that wrong view can be taken away. So in a similar way as we going to explain how to realize emptiness, same thing, you know. So initially we believe in this permanence aspect, that we here today, even people who are going to die tomorrow, they still like to believe they're not going to die. So there's people, yeah, this grasping to permanence is so strong that people don't like to believe that. So if you then start to analyze it, you know, the different reasons, and you see in the picture and you see in the mirror, you see there's a difference, right? So then you start reasoning. So initially there's a wrong view of looking to things, seeing things as being permanent, right? So then only with the power of reason you start doubting if it's true or not. So that's why I said doubt is very important, is our initial kind of questioning things. In this kind of tradition there's a lot of kind of emphasis on questioning things of reality. Questioning things. Because if you're questioning things, then you start to do research, right? Then you start to analyze. If you don't question things and think, yeah, that's right, then you don't move forward, right? So you have to question things. So here, same thing. First you understand or think it's reality, you're not changing, and that's why you believe this cosmetic industry, and then you start thinking about it, and then you start to realize, oh, I am changing, right? So then there's a kind of doubt arises, am I changing or not? Then still in the beginning it's probably not. Yeah? In the beginning it's still a doubt which is what we call tending towards a non-factual. Yeah? Doubt that doesn't go to reality. Right? So then more you start to reason, and there's a kind of neutral doubt. And like, maybe I'm changing, maybe not. It's kind of two-pointedness. Before we had one-pointedness to the wrong view, right? We thought, initially we were thinking, I am permanent, right? Yeah? So then, that's kind of single-pointed direction. Yeah? Then we start doubting, and it moves the mind away from that single-pointedness wrong view. Right? Now we say, oh, maybe I'm permanent, maybe impermanent. So that two-pointedness of doubt actually breaks this kind of single-pointed direction towards the wrong view. Right? You see that? So then go to doubt. First, this doubt, maybe I'm changing, maybe not. Probably not. Yeah? It's the first doubt, then not tending towards the factual. Right? So then more you start thinking and reasoning, and then it becomes a kind of neutral doubt. Yeah? So it becomes a kind of doubt, maybe I'm changing, maybe not. It doesn't take a direction. Right? Then you start more analyzing, and then you see how important it is to analyze things. Then the more you start analyzing, then actually you see that then you start to realize, oh, maybe I'm changing, maybe not. Probably I'm changing. You see that? So that's a doubt that already goes towards the factual, as we call it. A doubt tending towards the factual, doubt going towards reality. Right? So then the more reason you use, and then you come to the conclusion, oh, I am changing. Right? You look in the mirror, and then you see grey hair. Especially when you start getting grey, there's a kind of, you start to see, and then, and especially physically, you know, in the early days you could do quite some exercise, and then slowly you start to see, you become easier tired, you know. So the body is not every year is going to, after 40 or something like that, it's not kind of, it's going to be better every year. It's going to get worse and worse and worse, right? So, so that means, like there's a saying, one foot on a banana peel and one in the grave. Can happen any moment. You know? So then you start to realize that that you have this kind of what we call correct assumption. Is in accordance with reality that you start to think, oh, I am momentarily changing, right? So I don't believe this cosmetic industry anymore. You know? So that's kind of, you be convinced about reality. Same with the train example, you saw the platform and you realized, it's not our train that is moving, it's the other one. Through having seen the movement with your eye, consciousness, right? So that's our first step towards direction of reality. Yeah. So same thing. Initially we believe in kind of, you know, grasping at concrete or true existence. Yeah, we think exists from their own side. Yeah. Then we start reasoning, what we do now with dependent origination, and slowly we start doubting it, and then slowly we move towards the right direction. Yeah. So that's how we have to move forward. So this ignorance, us grasping at concrete I and mine, yeah, is this cause for the destructive emotions to arise. So that's kind of, we just saw. And then the absence of this ignorance, yeah, the absence of what ignorance is, of appearance of concrete existence, that's actually what we call emptiness. Yeah, that's the ultimate truth. So why it's called ultimate truth? Because there's nothing more superior from the point of view of ultimate reality than that particular truth. Yeah. So if you able to understand that by the power of reasoning, we just use one. Yeah. So the first reason is dependent origination, right? That's one reason. And then dependent origination, I said there was 3 levels, and we did one. Which one did we do? The one with the causes and effect relationships, right? So dependent origination means as the king of reasons because you don't fall into two extremes, as I just said, right? Dependent, you don't fall into the extreme of eternalism. Origination, you don't fall into the extreme of nihilism, right? So that's yeah. So then there's 3 levels of dependent origination. So the first level is cause and effect relationships, as we just talked about, right? That's the most easiest way to understand dependent origination because everything, you know, all impermanent phenomena are in the nature of cause and effect relationships, and that means that because things exist by the power of causes and conditions, nothing can exist all by itself, right? So that proves that. Okay? So the more you think about your body and your mind, it's actually momentary changing. You know? So because your body and your mind is momentary changing, there's no place for something concrete to exist all by itself. Yeah? You see that? Yeah? So that reasoning in that regard can be very helpful. The more you aware of the causality of cause and effects, you know, then the less you will grasp at kind of concrete existence. You know, so that's a very powerful meditation, especially emphasized in the Theravada tradition, right? In those kind of traditions where you can read a lot of emphasis on this causality of body and mind, which generates a kind of awareness, becomes very strong. Then the moment the I appears very concrete, you straight away see it doesn't arise, it doesn't exist the way it appears. So that's why Mahasi Sayadaw, in one of the Burmese scholars and great practitioners, he talks about the same thing. You know, that because of this habituation, then the self, when it appears, it doesn't. It's realized it doesn't. It cannot exist the way it appears, and the meditator also generates a kind of fear, same as we describe in our tradition. That because the object of refutation, that concrete kind of aspect of reality, falls away. Right. So when that object of concrete appearance falls away, there's a kind of fear. You know? So people will realize emptiness for the first time. There's two kind of bodhisattvas. Right? One is just like blissing out because, you know, found this kind of ultimate nature of reality. Having found that actually helps the person not to create suffering anymore in the future. Right? So you can imagine this kind of finding something more than $1 billion can do, right? Because then you can really do something about the suffering. So certain bodhisattvas, they say, or before becoming a bodhisattva even, when they realize emptiness, you know, they get so blissful and so happy because they found something that's gonna end all the problems. You know? So you can imagine that's quite rare to find something like that. You know? Can you imagine? You cannot find it in the shop. You cannot find it online. You know, but, you can only find it by self-research, you know, by checking, you know, the mind. So you can imagine that if you look for something like that for a long time and then you find it, then it's that's why some bodhisattvas or practitioners, they get extremely kind of happy or blissful, you know. So other practitioners, they get fear, you know, some fear arises. Why? Because this concrete holding towards I am mine falls away, right? So there's nothing to hold on to anymore as before. So again, some fear can arise. But there's not something wrong, there's a good sign in general. As long as the fear is so that after you think about emptiness, your understanding or your faith in cause and effect should be stronger. Right? So the more you understand, oh, it's just cause and effect, relationships, nothing else. Right? Then you're on the right track. So I said before, whatever meditation we do in the Lamrim, it's important to know why we do it, how we do it, and check if we did it correctly. Right? So with meditation on emptiness, it's the same thing. Why do we have to meditate on emptiness? In order to cut this ignorance, this kind of concrete concept of I and mine thinking it exists from its own side. Why do we have to eliminate that? Because that's the cause for anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, anxiety, fear to arise. So if you take away that kind of ignorance, then when there's no ignorance, there's no afflictions. Right? When there's no afflictions, there's no karma being created. If there's no karma being created, there's no cause for samsara. Right? So those who, you know, if you study the 12 links, for example, in Buddhist, how we actually bound in the cycle of rebirth, then you can see that the root cause of all that is this ignorance. So if that ignorance is not present, the next chain will not come into being, right? So that's kind of a proof that when there's no ignorance, there's no afflictions. When there's no afflictions, there's no karma being created. When there's no karma being created, there's no causes for samsara, or suffering. So that proves the more you understand emptiness, and the more you eliminate ignorance, you will move on to this kind of path to nirvana, right? So if there's no cause for suffering, then you won't suffer, right? So that's what we have to go towards too. Yeah? So to cut the cause for suffering or samsara. So that's it. So that's the first level of dependent origination, right? Causes and effects, right? Yeah. So the second one is a little bit more, goes a bit deeper, because the first level of dependent origination is being described by, if you study Buddhist tenets, yeah, this is described by the mind-only school, right? And below, all the mind-only school and the Vaibhasika and Sautantrika, let's say, the dependent origination has to be in the nature of cause and effect relationships, right? So that's what we just talked about. So next level, a little bit more profound, is the second level of dependent origination, and that is the dependence, right, of parts and a collection of parts. Yeah, like our body has many parts and it has a collection, right? Or a car has, you know, a collection of parts and individual parts. So there's a relationship or dependence among those two, right? Yeah, so the car, the collection of the car, depends on its individual parts, and the other way around, right? So our body and mind, same thing. What we call a body, what we call a mind, yeah, is interdependent, has this independence of the collection of it and its individual parts, right? Yeah, so that proves, this kind of nature of dependent origination proves that also the self cannot exist from its own side, right? Because our body, right, has many parts, and those individual parts depend upon each other, and that depends on the whole collection. And the whole collection depends on the individual parts. So within that dependence of the collection as well as the individual parts, there's nothing that can exist all by itself without dependence, right? Yeah. So that's another reason to prove that the I doesn't exist concrete from its own side, because of this law of dependent origination, and well, on the second level of, you know, the collection as well as individual parts, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's the second level of dependent origination. Yeah. So it's very simplified today. Yeah, that's the second level. So that also proves that what we call a car, like our car in the showroom, a Bentley is a British car, right? Yeah, Bentley or Rolls Royce. I was hitchhiking. We were hitchhiking once, and it was the first time we went to where did we go? I think one of the first trips we made, and we were just standing, and the Rolls Royce came by, and we thought, if that takes us, that will be amazing. But actually didn't.
They usually don't.
But when I was hitchhiking in Germany, from there was we had two records. One record from the Netherlands to Spain, San Sebastian, this kind of touristy place. You know. From the point of view of expenses, that was our record, because we only spent 5 guildens. It is about, what is it, €3 on the whole trip. Because luckily we were taken by some Muslims who were going to, I think they were going to Nigeria or something, and they had so much food with them, you know, so they gave us a lot of food. So there was one record. And my other record from speed was from the Netherlands to Salzburg, which is Austria. Yeah. So I did it in 10 hours, which is like about 1,000 kilometers. So it's quite quick. And then also I mostly choose BMW and Mercedes. Because it was so easy to hitchhike, so you can choose, right? I don't think people still hitchhike, or no?
Not much.
Anyway.
No, very rare.
Yeah, in those days was quite.
My friend hitchhiked a horse once and got a lift.
Okay. That's another kind of record.
Yeah, anyway, so talk about why did I tell you that? Because cars, right? So yeah, Bentley, go back to the Bentley. So then, the inherent existing Bentley, right, it appears very inherently, especially when it's yours.
Yeah.
So, but actually, you know, it doesn't exist among the collection and among the individual parts, right? If you assemble it all and put all the parts together and pile them up in a corner, it's not the Bentley, right? But the collection of all the parts are there, right? But you have to assemble them in a particular order in order to make it suitable to be called a car. Let's go to the next level. Right? So that means that among the individual parts, as well as the collection, we cannot find something concrete, Bentley, right? Or for ourselves, same thing. Among our body and mind, there's nothing to be found which exists all by itself, without dependence. Though it appears like that. Ignorance appears like that, but actually, by reason, it cannot exist the way it appears. You know? So that's the second level of dependent origination, right? So then the third one is the most kind of subtle one and the more difficult to be understood, but the most powerful one when understood. Yeah? So that means everything is merely imputed by the mind, number 3, merely imputed by the mind. So that level of interdependence or dependent origination is only being explained by Svatantika Madhyamika and Parasangika Madhyamika, more the schools of the Madhyamika philosophy. Things are imputed by the mind. Yeah? So, in order to understand the Prasangika view, you have to understand Svatantika first. So that difference between those two is very subtle. It's maybe beyond the course for today, but it's very important to understand emptiness. You have to really understand that difference. You know? Because initially when we read a book about emptiness, or a kind of Lamrim book, you know, I remember when I was just into Buddhism, read like a novel, you know, oh interesting, nice, that makes sense, yes, yes, yes. So you read it like a novel, so it doesn't really actually does something with the mind, right? And then especially when you read the Insight chapter, like Pabonka Rinpoche's Lamrim is very powerful, but the Insight section is like an instructional manual, right? It's kind of just giving the guidelines. Yeah? So if you read through that, it's like, oh yeah, interesting, you know. And then Prasanga is very easy to be understood. You know, it's very black and white. Nothing exists inherently, nothing exists truly. You know, things are in nature dependent origination. So that kind of also in debate, you know, in philosophical debate in the monastic institutions or the nunneries, it's very easy to defend Prasangika view. Very easy, just because so black and white. It's very easy to give the answers, you know. But to really think about it, how things actually conventionally exist, you know, that's a little bit more complex. You know? So that's why, for that purpose, you have to understand the difference between Svatantrika and Prasangika view. You know, to really. But anyway, we come to that maybe later. That's time. But so things are merely imputed by the mind, right? That's the third level of dependent origination. But it also proves that things cannot exist from their own side. So then you go back to the example with the cars. So take the Bentley then as the cars in the showroom, right? And you bought one of those cars on an agreement. Yeah, the boy throws the stone, right? So then you can see it's just merely imputed, right? That you bought this car and then imputed my car. Well, it appears very concrete when the boy throws stones on the cars, right? And one's yours. Yeah? So in that way, it appears very concrete. But actually, before you signed the agreement, you didn't react like that, right? You thought, oh, that's not nice what the boy is doing, right? But then later you signed the agreement, and actually the car didn't change, the boy didn't change, only the imputation towards the car changed, which is just merely imputed. But still you see it as very concrete, right? So then you get irritated or even very angry when the boy starts to throw those stones. Yeah? So that actually proves also that even things are merely imputed, we still grasp at them as existing from their own side, very concrete. Yeah? So that's the third level of dependent origination, is this kind of things are in the nature of interdependence from the point of view of merely imputed by the mind. Because if you look for the self among body and mind, you go from the tip of your toe to the crown of your head, you scan the whole body, there's no place for concrete from its own side existing I and mind that appears in a particular way, but cannot exist among the body and mind aspects, right? So then you come to a conclusion that actually it's merely imputed by the mind upon the collections, or the mere collections I should say. Upon the mere collections of the aggregates, we say it's merely imputed by the mind, right? So same with this car, we assemble in different parts and pile it up, it's not suitable to be called a car, right? If you assemble them in a particular order, then only then it becomes kind of suitable to be imputed a car, right? So you can see that there's this dependence upon the object, yeah, which has to have a kind of a classification of the mere imputation, or suitable to be called a car, or suitable to be called a table, or cup, or a house, or whatsoever. Yeah. So that means that this mere collection of particular parts in a particular way, it has to have a suitable basis to be called a particular object, right? So they can see that it's all the things around us, what we, it's all being imputed by mind. Same with, the president or prime minister, same thing, When, Trump number 2 in the UK, when he came into being, it's like, then all of a sudden Boris Johnson became, kind of from its own side existing, a different person than he was before the election, right? Yeah, so that means that after whatever president or prime minister or, vice president, whatsoever, when they come into being, which is just a mere imputation by the power of a vote, right? We impute kind of personality, but we see it as very concrete, right? So that means that by the power of this level of dependent origination, merely imputed by the mind, we can prove that things don't exist from their own side. Yeah, it's merely imputed by the mind. So that's the third level of dependent origination, right? The merely imputation So that's a little bit more difficult to understand than the first two, as you can see. Especially the first one is for us very easy. It's easier to relate to, right? Things are in cause and effect relationships, so that's why things don't exist from their own side. So that can be a very powerful kind of understanding to prevent our mind grasping at this kind of concrete true existence. So that's why the more we contemplate upon these levels of dependent origination, whatever level you contemplate upon, then actually you lose this kind of grasping at concrete true existence. So the more you understand that level of dependent origination, then the more you will see that things are more like an illusion than actually it is kind of really out there. You know? So the more you understand that aspect, then the afflictions will basically, starts to lose their potential to become manifest, because they use this kind of concrete building blocks of, I and mine and them and this and that and my object and my phone and my kind of car and my house, So because of that kind of concrete aspects of reality, we have all these problems, right? So the more we see the nature of dependent origination of those three levels, we actually see that things don't exist as concrete out there as they appear. And we always, so that we have to question. So we have to get a clear picture. How does it appear? And then question it. Does it exist the way it appears? And then examine it with these three levels of dependent origination. Right? That's one kind of reasoning. There's a few other reasonings. So it's all rooted in what we call Chandrakirti's sevenfold reasoning. It's actually this is the dependence. It's like two of them, right? So so there's another one and different, another kind of reasoning being used quite often. Let me maybe explain after the break. But so there's a few. So that's the most powerful reasons are one and different, and then these kind of dependent origination, the three levels as we just discussed. So to prove that things are empty of inherent existence, things don't exist the way it appears. So those kind of aspects of understanding reality can bring great benefits to, of course, ultimately, in order to eliminate all afflictions together at the root, or the causes, or the seeds, you have to realize emptiness, right? So, but even on a day-to-day level, even just merely thinking about emptiness, as Arya Deva says in his 400 verses, even having a doubt, right, about the existence of a self, shakes samsara. So that means that just a little understanding of emptiness you have, or selflessness, actually shakes samsara in the sense of it causes you to go in a direction of eliminating the afflictions, right? So that doubt is then referring to one of the three doubts we just described, the doubt with standing towards the factual. That you think the self appears inherently, does it exist the way it appears? Or maybe it doesn't exist. Probably it doesn't exist the way it appears, right? There's still a doubt, but that already, Arya Deva said, shakes samsara. Right? That already starts to leave samsara behind, So that's the good news, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news of the afflictions, the destructive emotions, they cause so much trouble. But the good news is, one of the best qualities they have is that you can take them away. So we can eliminate them. By the method we discussed this morning, and then even more by the method we're now discussing, by understanding emptiness, right? Empty of inherent existence. So maybe up till here, any questions? Otherwise.
Could you use the word, instead of inherent existence, could you use the word independent or isolated existence? You assume you can.
Yeah, because the same meaning, right? It means without dependence.
Yeah. So
if things are isolated or non-dependent, that proves things exist all by themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the theory behind it, and that's how things appear often, but actually that's not reality.
By contemplating things like dependent arising, like cause and effects, for example, you feel like the I exists independently, but we depend on air, we depend on food, and so forth.
Yeah.
By contemplating that, is the point that it's exposing the fact that it's the mind that delineates where the I begins and where the I ends. Is that kind of thing?
So again, better then?
So by contemplating, like, where does, you know, what the I depends upon, well, like the body, you know, food, water, air, so
The conventional I, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
By contemplating that through these 3 stages of dependent origination, I guess the point is that it's blurring the boundaries of where the I actually really is.
Yeah.
Because,
So,
you know, are we the water that we drink or not?
Yeah.
Are we the food that we depend on or
Yeah.
not?
So how do we exist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts to melt away.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. That's true. It's good that it starts to melt away, but don't melt it too much, right? So prevent yourself from falling to the extreme of nihilism, you know? Because how we actually conventionally exist, which is the most kind of subtle form of conventional reality, right? That's this merely imputed nature. Yeah. So in order to understand that well, you also have to understand emptiness. Yeah. So they say, in order to realize how we actually conventionally exist on the most subtle level of the third level we just described, merely imputed by the mind, can only be realized after having realized emptiness. Yeah, so that means first we have to get rid of this kind of concrete concept of how a reality is to us. Yeah. But on a conventional level we can see, you know, we're still sitting and talking and drinking, and, you know, but there's no concrete I to be found. I am sitting or I'm drinking, right? From its own side. That doesn't exist. But conventionally, we're talking, and if you knock your head against the wall, there's some pain, right? So conventionally, those experiences are there. So that kind of conventional experience are there. It's good to know that conventionally we exist, but how we actually exist, that's this actually third level, which is kind of the merely imputed by the mind. Because among the body and mind, you cannot find a concrete self that exists all by itself. Right? You cannot find something among the aggregates of body and mind, within or separate from, that actually we say this is the self or this is the I. Yeah, so in order to understand that aspect, if you're really interested, then you should study kind of the 4 tenets of Buddhist schools. You know, because then every school gets more and more, it gets subtler and subtler and subtler. You know? So first you start to see how a very coarse form of self doesn't exist, like independent and one and permanent, right? So that's very easy to refute. Oh, it doesn't exist that way. But how does it exist then? Yeah, there's another one, this kind of self-sufficient, substantial existing self. It's like a pilot in a plane, you know, kind of controller over the aggregates. It's not as permanent as the previous one you reviewed, yeah? But it has kind of dependence, but it's kind of, you know, superior. You know? So then also you analyze if there's dependence, like the people in the plane depend on the pilot, but the pilot depend less on the people in the plane, right? Generally speaking, of course, because of the salary and everything. But in order to fly the plane, then the people, they really depend on the pilot. Yeah. So this means he's kind of the controller, right? So that means the self-sufficient, substantially existing self appears like that also. You know? It's been described by other schools. Yeah. So a more subtler one. But also that cannot exist because there's nothing separate from body and mind that actually seems to be in control. Because this dependence is from both sides, right? From body and mind, from both sides, that dependence is the same. It's not that one is depending more on the other. You know? So it's from both sides. So then you also see that actually that cannot exist, right? So then you go another step further, right? And then you go to these levels we just discussed, and then become more and more subtle, that the self appears to be exists from its own side, sometimes mixed with the body and mind, right? Like the innate appearance of grasping at itself, but actually then you analyze it cannot exist within the body and mind, being independent in a particular way. Yeah.
So that's very great. From that perspective then, the later schools will like have a different definition of inherent existence than the lower schools.
I mean, different definitions from, of course, they describe inherent existence and dependent originations in different ways, right? So you have to see how they define dependent origination and the most subtle level of dependent origination, because the mind-only school and below, they say dependent origination is the nature of cause and effect relationships. They don't talk about merely imputed aspect. So then the other schools of Buddhist philosophy, they go a little subtler. You know? So then when you end up with the Svatantrika and Prasangika, they say both things are imputed by the mind. But yeah, sometimes they say merely imputed by mind, depends which commentary or interpretation you follow. But then if they say both are say mere imputed by the mind, then the mere aspect is different. So the Svatandika, they think that if you look for something to impute something upon, you need a basis, right? So they say you'll be able to find something out there. But then Prasangika says that's eternalism. So there's a kind of debate with each other, right? And then the Svatandika says to Prasangika, what you say is nihilism. You know, because you say if the base is not there, then nothing exists at all. You know, so that's kind of a debate between the two. And that debate is very interesting because then it becomes subtler and subtler and subtler. And then only you start to understand the real aspects of the Prasangika view, what mere imputed means. Because even that basis itself, you cannot really find. Right? So what the Svatandika also says, what is the conventional self? Right? So then Svatandika and below, they say there's the continuity of consciousness, or what we call main consciousness, which is the illustration of a person. Yeah? So they say that's kind of the consciousness that goes from this life to the next, for example. Right? So that main continuity or that main consciousness, they say that is the self. That's Svatandika and below, right? That's the self. But it's very convincing for us, you know, to say what is the self? It's not a body, you know, but maybe it's the mind, right? So then among all the different types of consciousness, maybe it's this main mind of mental consciousness, you know, it goes from this life to the next life. It makes sense, right? And you think, oh, that's maybe the self, right? But then Prasangika starts to refute that and say, okay, even that consciousness is kind of a stream of moments, and a stream of the different parts of the moments, right? As well as a consciousness that has more subtler and more coarse aspects of itself, right? So even in that stream of consciousness, you cannot find, oh, it's this or it's that. It's the mere collection of those moments, what we say, oh, this is what we call the self, or this is what we call the consciousness, right? So you can see that debate between those two schools becomes very interesting, because then you see the Prasangika goes a little bit more subtler, you know, that actually, same with an hour, you know, we take 1 hour for granted, but if you have 1 hour and you have 59 minutes, I once had to give a presentation for Tibet House in Tibet, in Delhi, we had a conference about quantum mechanics and the philosophy of Nagarjuna, the philosophy of Tibetan origination. So I had to give a presentation about time. So then Geshe Tenzin Namdak, who is kind of still the director of Tibet House, asked me to come. So then I thought, time, what do I have to say about time? But if you really examine the same thing, right? So 1 hour is kind of 59 minutes, right? 59 seconds. And then how much of a billionth over, even a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a, there's no end, right? To divide time, there's no end. Yeah? So then, when actually is it an hour, and when a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a split second is gone, then the hour is already gone, right? So even how to describe 1 hour, you can see is kind of a mere imputation based on the mere collection of how we define 60 minutes, right? So that many things you see with this consciousness, same thing. The mere collection of the moments, or the stream of consciousness is what we impute. This is what we call consciousness. But among those different moments, and among the collection of those moments, we cannot really find something concrete existing out there. So same with 1 hour, we cannot find it. It's just a description, right? Yeah. So then that's the difference a little bit between the two schools of Svatandika and Prasangika. Yeah, it becomes a bit more subtle, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's that aspect of Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say that it almost looks like nothing exists, because it's very close to nihilism. Yeah, but it's not. So if you have those two views of Svatandika and Prasangika, it's not. Yeah, but it's very similar because there's nothing to hold on upon. Well, Svatandika likes to find something still. You know, so that's why they say there's something there, out there. If you look for the meaning of imputation, you will find something. Otherwise you cannot impute it, right? But then Prasangika goes a step further and said, even that base of imputation, actually you cannot find it. So it's very interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, any other questions? Otherwise, we need another break? Yeah?
Sometimes when I think about you mentioned the afflictions, I'm not in the nature of the mind.
Mm.
Sometimes I have doubts coming up.
Mm.
Especially maybe anger, anger comes up, anger goes away. But ignorance, I feel like it's always there.
Yeah, it's always there.
So-
Very good feeling. That's reality, right?
Yeah. How can
Ignorance,
we
because
prove-
ignorance is there with positive and negative states of mind, with afflictions as well as constructive emotions. Ignorance is always present, right? I mean, on the surface, right? It's always dormant. Yeah. Well, anger, kind of, ignorance goes along with if the mind is neutral, if the mind is positive or negative, right? Well, anger only can be present, at a particular time, because when a mind of practicing patience is being manifest, there's another reason actually to prove that afflictions can be taken away, because the moment, for example, you like person A, the mind of disliking person A is not coming into being, right? Of course, one day maybe you like person, and the other day you dislike or something. That changes, right? But one particular second, if one mind, mental consciousness, right, with one particular consciousness, that thinks, I like person A, then to dislike person A cannot come up at that time, right? Right? Yeah, so, same when you practice patience, yeah, or love and kindness, then the object of apprehension of that mind is completely different from the object of apprehension of anger. So anger cannot come up at that time. Right? But it's always, ignorance is always present. Yeah? So ignorance is a grasping at a nice person, grasping at a not nice person, grasping at a neutral person, right? It's always present. So that's why ignorance is with us since beginner's lifetime. If you read, there's a very nice text by Geshe Tenzin Namdak. I think it's translated, by Venerable Fedor. It's kind of debating ignorance. There's kind of wisdom, realizing emptiness, debating ignorance. And then ignorance says, what are you doing here? To wisdom, I'm here since beginner's lifetime. You go out, you just knew, And then wisdom says, yeah, but you're not a contrary reality. Actually, you don't exist. This has this debate. It's very interesting kind of conversation between, and that also proves that this ignorance is there since beginner's lifetime. So it's especially the innate aspect of it. So it's very strong, and it can be present by positive, negative, and neutral states of mind. Right? And even when we concentrate, when we have concentration, samatha, or whatever kind of meditation, still ignorance is present, always there on the surface. So that means that as long as you don't eliminate ignorance, then you never stop this cycle of the 12 links, right? Because the 12 links, if you study them, how to be born in lower states of existence and how to be born in higher states of existence, within that cycle, is all rooted in ignorance, right? So then you see, until you have eliminated ignorance, then this cycle keeps going. Yeah? And you can see that it's more present than more destructive emotion like anger or something. Yeah. So it's a very good experience. Yeah.
And how can you prove it's not in the nature of the mind?
Ignorance. Because if you have a mind that realizes emptiness, especially direct perception of emptiness, at that time only the lack of concrete existence appears, nothing else. Okay? So at that time, true existence or inherent existence doesn't appear to the mind. So that means that when this ultimate reality is present, in a direct perception, then ignorance is not present. Or the appearance, I have to say, ignorance is not present, right? So then when the person comes out of the meditation, due to the power of previous inclinations, things appear truly, but straight away the person says, oh, or realizes it's just an illusion. So it appears, but it doesn't grasp at it anymore. Right? So then slowly, with more habituation to this ultimate understanding of reality, of the direct perception of emptiness, also that appearance starts to fade away until Buddhahood is achieved, right? So that proves that this ignorance can be taken away in steps. Yeah. So that's possible. Yeah. When we read the Heart Sutra, Gata 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 Paragata Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgata Bodhisattva, right? Gata Gata, then Paragata, no? When we read Paragata, that's the first part of direct perception of emptiness. So at that time, only emptiness appears to the mind. Ignorance cannot appear. Yeah, and then If you're interested, he has a book by His Holiness, one interviewer actually, one journalist. That book is called The Art of Forgiveness. It's a very inspiring chapter in there, where His Holiness talks about his experience of emptiness, realizing emptiness. It's the only book, or the only time of period His Holiness actually really talked about in depth. I mean, there's a few pages, but and then Venerable Lakrala, who is now the director of the Tibetan Library, he said that he never heard His Holiness. He was translating at that time. He said he never heard about His Holiness speaking like this before. Very inspiring. Yeah. So, but now, last few years, His Holiness starts to say a little bit more about, you know, His Holiness doesn't say I realize emptiness, but he starts to say more about kind of, if you think about emptiness, it looks like afflictions don't arise. Very interesting comments. So that book is very inspiring, actually. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
In Gaia, he said, I don't have the realization of emptiness, but I have something like it.
In Dharamshala, he said he had a vision of Chenrezig, where he asked Chenrezig, so have I realised emptiness? And Chenrezig went, yes, directly.
Oh wow.
That's the
Oh,
size-
then I
that's what
heard
he
it
said.
recently,
In June, July.
June, yeah, I heard something like that. Yeah, I mean, of course, His Holiness is a Buddha, but he shows the humble aspect of, you know, yeah, it's very inspiring. If you read those kind of, because we read in the scriptures and it's all kind of far away, you know, it looks like very far away, but then if a person like His Holiness talks about it in these ways, you know, it's inspiring, you know, it's very inspiring. Yeah. So then, once His Holiness also had an interview with Westerners, and then the Westerners, because Westerners are very direct, right? So they said to His Holiness, Your Holiness, you always so humble, and you know, but if you don't have these realizations, what hope is there for us? And then His Holiness actually very skillfully talked about that he remembered being with the Buddha, as Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva. It's very moving, you know. So that means that out of skillful means, sometimes His Holiness says those things, right? So, but the book also, Art of Forgiveness, also His Holiness talks about similar things of how things appear, like an illusion, how when he came out of that meditation. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So we need a break. Yeah.
Okay.
Tea, coffee, or tea,
Yeah.
right?
Forward.
Tea country, like India, China.